recommended in it. I've got my own list too, but she's into different types of stuff than I am. So,
well, we all.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, David Streggy. And tonight we're going to be talking about a classic film, supposedly to some, whereas this was actually my first time watching it, even though I had actually had it in my collection.
wow.
I did. I've watched all the other Kevin Smiths, but this was the one that I had not entirely gotten to. But I'm going to mention the director once again, Kevin Smith, in 1994. This was his directorial debut, and
it is called
Clerks. And I'm just going to say what IMDb says about the film before we go on with spoiler alerts, ladies and gentlemen. A day in the lives of two convenience clerks named Dante and Randall as they annoy customers, discuss movies, and play hockey on the store row.
They discuss a movie. Shame on you, IMDb.
The quick blurb that Kevin Smith himself used to describe the film at Sundance was much longer than that, and it included salsa sharks, and I was amused by this.
The
salsa shark is one of my favorite things. For sure. We should point out that the lovely lady who recommended this is not with us tonight, so I guess you could say we're doing our own little version of Men Alone 2, the KY connection here, yeah?
For sure.
I would know. Well, this was, yes, the movies we're thankful for. This one was Katie Cadaver's pick, and I agree. It is a film to be thankful for many people, not for all, but...
I'm definitely thankful for it.
Right.
Oh yeah, worthwhile.
Alrighty. So, what we're going to do here is go in with first impressions. So, I'm going to start with you, Jake. Why don't you head us off here? What was your impression of this film?
I cannot honestly tell you how many times I've seen Clerks over the years. It's not a huge number. I've never had the gleeful adoration for it that some people do. But I remember my introduction to Kevin Smith was twofold. I went to college. I started college and fell in with a group of film geeks the same rough time that Dogma hit theaters. And I actually saw Dogma in theaters. But I think it was also about that time that at the pet store that I worked at in Richmond, I was informed that if you work in customer service, you have to see Clerks and Mallrats. And I was very much advised to see them. And I think I saw Mallrats first. So I think I had, and then Chasing Amy not long after. I think I saw all four of those within the span of a few months. And of course, they're kind of the essential Kevin Smith viewing, really. So those four films, you could argue. I loved Dogma, and I was like, what the heck is this? This is just crazy.
Yeah.
But one thing that always there are two things that have always given me a little bit of pause with Kevin Smith. One is his gleefully foul mouth, which I have awkward remembrances of first time I saw this in Mallrats in the company of parents. And the other thing is that I can't remember what movie it is where they make the reference to it being a whole bunch of dick and fart jokes. But really, honestly, that there's a lot of teen level humor throughout the films. So they're not perfect, but I will say, as someone who has worked in customer service for much longer than I care to admit, in many different fields, and I currently have 2 different customer service jobs in very different fields. I have worked in a restaurant, I have worked in regular retail, and I have definitely experienced a large portion of what they go through in this movie, and I get it.
Oh, for sure. Like, especially
get
if you've ever worked at like a mini mart, which I have done for a fair amount of my adult life. It is definitely, everybody has had a day that's fairly similar to Clerks before, where you're in there, you weren't supposed to fucking be there today. And
yes, I've had a couple of those days, yes.
Stuff just seems to go wrong on that day, you know.
I'm not even supposed to be here today. But yeah, and I also, again, I was introduced to Kevin Smith through some Film Geeks. I've always appreciated the fact that this was a homemade film, pretty much. That he did it, he and some friends did it themselves, and I respect that, and I've always, yeah, it is kind of inspiring to see someone, make something happen, pretty much on their own volition, you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. Making something out of nothing.
Right.
Alrighty. Going over to Brandon. Why don't you tell us what your first experience was?
Well, first I'll go ahead and just before I forget it all, I had promised Dustin I would read his thoughts off real quick, so this will be a good time to do that. He had not been able to finish this particular one because his file crashed at the 50-minute mark. He wanted to say that it's a great work of observational humor that's entertaining. It's an entertaining event, though nothing's necessarily going on. The black and white presentation gives it this surreal feel that the everyday situations probably wouldn't be as interesting in color. He also wanted to say that he liked the gum salesman part, which we can talk about later.
Yes.
But this is not my first viewing of Clerks.
We miss you, Dustin.
Unlike a lot of the others, I did see Clerks first. I was a really back in that time. I was a very big comic book geek at that time. It was pretty much just comic books and video games for me back then. And when I heard about Clerks, I just had to check that out because, again, I heard a lot about Kevin Smith being a large comic book person, so it kind of felt like, okay, this guy's gonna really have some cool stuff. So I watched Clerks, and that was my first exposure to Kevin Smith. And then after that, I watched Dogma in theaters. Not long after that. It was really kind of a cool and surreal experience. I hadn't been used to watching more artistic type films as it was, and it really was kind of a mix of artistic and indie. So that was kind of an early exposure to me to that level of film. So it was kind of cool. I really enjoyed it. The Jay and Silent Bob characters kind of threw me for a loop, and then when I saw them again in Dogma, it threw me for a bigger loop. So, very much worthwhile, and when I saw it again later on, I gained more appreciation for it than I did the first time, and I think even this time, watching Clerks, and then Clerks the animated series, and then Clerks 2, all back to back, I think I've gained a definite appreciation of Clerks.
I wish I had budgeted time for that. I really do. I'm very annoyed. I caught 2 episodes of the animated series to prepare for this.
I pulled the set out and set it on my desk. So you got further than I did.
I was unable to find where I stuck my animated copy or my Clerks 2 at the moment because I am so disorganized right now.
Mhm.
But I myself prepared to and watched Clerks yesterday at midnight. And
I watched it twice myself. Like, I was going to do the Clerks 2 thing, and kudos to you for doing it, Brandon. I don't know. I felt like that would have informed some of my opinion on this. I don't know.
Mhm.
I got kind of a scattered brain anyways, so I just kept it to the single film and just, watched it twice.
I had to just because I had to wonder if my memories of it were the same as they were in the past. It just was too curious.
I'm definitely going to be firing through all of the Kevin Smith stuff after this discussion, though, for sure.
And you had to answer the burning question: is it safe?
Oh, I got a burning question for you guys for later. Trust me.
So, Mo, when was your first viewing of this film?
Oh shit! I think I saw Clerks the first time like freshman year of high school with a buddy of mine. I had actually seen, I feel like, Mallrats first. I hadn't seen Dogma yet. Somehow I missed that when it came out, but I wasn't aware of the stuff, just at the time probably looked kind of stupid to me. But, in hindsight, it's actually probably my favorite of the Kevin Smith movies, if I had to pick, outside of Clerks. And it's just always stuck with me, because there was, like, you watch stuff like Evil Dead or low budget horror movies, they make you want to make your own horror movie for sure. But then there's also that hurdle of like, but you got to know how to do special effects, or you got to have some level of expertise in those fields to be able to pull it off, or know somebody who does. Clerks was the first low budget sort of independent movie I watched that made me want to make my own movie, simply because they didn't need anything to do it. They just needed likable characters, a good script, and a location, And so in terms of like bare bones indie film stuff, I think Clerks will always be a shining example of that, because there's really no special effects in it. There's not a bunch of production value behind it. It's just dudes hanging around their job, So it goes without saying that it's definitely a favorite movie of mine. It's one I've watched countless times over the years, and still don't know that I fully understand every little subtlety of it. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things you kind of unwrap the onion a little bit every time that you watch it. I don't know that will probably ever stop for any of us. Repeated viewings of Clerks, I think, are a must, whereas the other Kevin Smith movies maybe not so much, But that's basically my first impression, was that I was just absolutely blown away with how much they did with almost absolutely nothing. Just the storefront, some shoe polish.
Well, actually, and I'll go ahead and mention that just to make sure it gets mentioned. The shoe polish thing was brilliant. It was a way to, let's say, well, we have no real money to work with. They were allowed to film between hours of business. So it was basically like 10 at night to 6 in the morning. So they did 3 weeks straight of nighttime filming. But in night, you don't have light outside. So they had to explain why there was no light, or rather dance around it.
That's
so
brilliant.
They just kept the shutters closed by saying that someone put the gum in the locks. And then, of course, you put the sign up with the shoe polish. I assure you were open. Not only sets up the constant, do you smell shoe polish, like throughout the film?
But accurate too. It does stay with you all day if you've ever fucked with some shoe polish.
But the other thing that was accurate was that people don't read. He has this huge sign.
Are you open?
Are you open? Are you open?
I do have to point out that we missed an opportunity here, David, with you not opening this with "I assure you, we're open."
Well, and I assure you, we are open for discussion. So,
And it is safe. Very safe.
but that being said, I, like I said, had never seen this film before, although I've seen many different clips from it. Okay. And I picked it up along with Clerks 2 and the animated. I've just never watched the movie.
David,
What? I said Moco.
wrong with you?
I didn't say the whole thing. Anyways, moving on. I've never watched them in their entirety. All three of the things. So after this, I may actually try to see if I can whip out my Clerks 2 and my Clerks anime.
You don't like it, dude. There's some stuff we talked about in the Killer Clowns discussion that actually is touched on in Clerks. Excuse me, the second one.
Nice. Well, anyways, so that being said, Clerks is about two clerks who end up working in the same spot. One wasn't supposed to be working that day and was called in. And the other is just your normal run-of-the-mill VHS board employee who knows everything about every movie and yet is pissantly annoying and rude to customers.
To put it mildly.
So pretty much every clerk.
So, what do you think of Dante?
He hits a little close to home, honestly. I feel like I have a little more spine than him, but he actually tries. He doesn't give a damn about his job, but he does try not to be too bad at it. You know, he does try not to piss people off. You know, he tries to be the peacekeeper, you know, taking shifts so he doesn't have to. And, yeah, he's definitely the more, he's the everyman, and Randall's, you know, it's kind of like Dante's the one that you are, and Randall's the one you wish you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect yin and yang, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Dante cares too much, honestly, in my opinion, and Randall doesn't care enough.
Yeah.
You know, so they sort of balance each other out a little bit. And I don't know. For me, Dante's a bit of a whiny bitch, but like you pointed out, I think most of us have a little bit more spine than Dante. Hopefully.
Yeah, Dante to me, he was kind of a whiny person.
Everyone's a whiny bitch sometimes, though. You know, sometimes you just have a bad day. He had other plans. He was trying to play hockey at 2 or whatever.
Oh yeah, I just wake up every day saying I woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Or in his case, the wrong part of the closet.
Make a little Nesquik in the lid of your cookie jar. I mean, I've definitely had days like that.
Or if you go by the TV show, he wakes up under a pile of dirty laundry every day.
I have definitely never fallen asleep in my closet, but I have woke up drunk in the clothes hamper before. That's something that I can attest to. It's just so cool in the bathroom or the laundry room. Like,
yeah, or like the opening thing where he's called by his boss and he tells him, he's like, look, I worked last night, I closed last night, I've got a hockey game at 2, I can't work. Okay, well, you're going to be there by noon, right? You'll be there at noon, right? And his boss tells him this, and he goes in on his, you know. And I've never had that exact thing happen. I have been called into work on my days off, and I've done it. The closest thing I've had to this is there was one job I had very, very briefly as a bartender that was very, the people running that company, I know they didn't know what they were doing. And there was a day where they decided not to open. But they didn't think it important to tell anyone. So I actually did show up for my shift and waited an hour before I called the boss. And he said, yeah, we're not open today. Yeah.
Dude, I've had the full spread, like, you know, getting called in on your day off, and then you have the dude that, like, is supposed to come take over, and he doesn't show up, so you end up working a double shift. Or
I've had the thing happen when I'm called in to come in. I get there, and they tell me go home.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I mean, and I've literally done the Dante thing where it's like, okay, if you're not there, though, I'm taking off, and then you need the job, and you don't want to get fired, so you end up staying even though they aren't there.
But have you ever found out that your boss, who said they would be there, is actually in Vermont?
Kind of, dude. I have definitely had days where it was supposed to be a trip to Costco, and then they ended up going to Portland for the afternoon. Oh, wow. And I was stuck with the boss's kids, who were like 12 and like 10, running the store for the day, you know. And then I've had gnarly stuff happen where, like, I used to work at this pizza place that was right across the street from this mini mart, much like the one in Clerks. And I was at work at the mini mart that day, and I kept telling that dude, stop scheduling like my pizza shifts over my fucking mini mart shifts. You see me over there at work, like, you know, when I'm working. And that's how I quit the pizza job, dude. Like, he showed up one day, he tried to pull that shit, and I went to work at the mini mart because it was the better job, honestly. And he showed up and he's like, you're supposed to be at work. And I was like, I am at work, dude. And that was how I quit. Like, I just never went back into the pizza shop.
Have you ever had a customer come in and, like, flip out because, like, aren't you supposed to be across the street or something like that? Or are you everywhere?
Yeah, I definitely. That was a running joke. It was like, you know, then some of the people would buy, like, the pizza Lunchables at the mini mart just to be funny or something, you know, because I was usually making their pizza at the pizza joint.
Good times. So.
I missed that job, and it was a lot like Clerks in a way. You know, the boss was like a big comic book nerd, so we were one of the last places in town that sold comic books. So we had the comic book rack right there. I didn't have to buy comics for like 2 years. You know, I could just pull them off there and read them and stick them back on the rack.
Welcome to the Burger, home of the Good Burger. May I take your order, please? Oops, wrong movie.
I even had bizarre stuff go down. Like, his son was like a rampant shoplifter, and so he would steal all these because he let his son work there for like summer money or whatever. So he would steal all these bags of chips, and then I live in the same neighborhood that they lived in, so I would give him a ride home, and he'd put them all in the back seat of my car when he would steal shit out the store. So there was a whole fiasco that went down with that, where we had to flip out on that kid because he was like about to get me fired. You know.
Okay.
All right. Well, the thing about Dante, one of the biggest issues I have with Dante at the end is he's so wishy-washy, and he's one of those people who never looks inward. He always finds other things to blame for his situations. And though a lot of the time he's got a crappy life, but he really is the master of his own fate right there.
Well,
and that's one of the things.
This one takes place over one day, so you're not going to get a lot of character growth or development. I think he really does.
I don't know.
He does do some of that in the second movie.
I don't know. I mean, I think that there's quite a bit of character development in the first Clerks movie. They work hard to try and develop those characters.
Well, for one day, yeah. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously we'll get to it later, but the whole fight with Randall later kind of reality checks him a little bit. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Jake.
I was saying, no, I don't think I had anything going there.
So apparently, while they are, the they are doing their job, or at least while Dante is doing his job. There is a customer that walks in. This is like the fairly first scene after he basically opens up the shop, and he incites a mob.
Right.
What did you think about that little first scene for the gum?
Well, that that is something that has become sort of a running thing for me. Is almost any customer service job you have, especially if you're in retail, you will have that thing that everyone and their brother wants. And in this one, it's the cigarettes,
Uh-huh.
But it's like when I worked in a fish store, it was like everyone wanted Bettas and Killas. That was it, really. They came in looking for the Bettas, the so-called fighting fish,
Betas.
or they had big fish, and they were looking for what they call Killas, or feeders for the Killas. So that was because that was where we were located, was the theme. When I was in a restaurant, we would make a joke. Basically, it was like ranch dressing, sweet tea, natty light. Those were pretty much the things that made that restaurant go round.
Didn't you bring up the Killas on one of these discussions too? You're like, has anybody got any Killas?
And actually, in the at the restaurant, I actually came up with what I called the Salem bomb, which is utterly disgusting. But my boss was so amused, he put it in the menu on the computer, which was a ramekin of ranch dropped in a glass of natty light.
Honestly, though, that sounds kind of like the type of thing that might cure your ass from a hangover or something.
But one
of these days, I want to try the warm fuzzy rice.
Yeah, but it's like, again, you get the people that just want the same thing over and over again. You get the same thing over and over again. And I that to me was one of the true to life moments. Every other person is like, "You guys cigarettes?" or something like that. And I'm like, and I love the end of that scene where one of the mob goes up, "Can I get some cigarettes?"
Right now at the restaurant that I work at, I work at Popeyes. So,
oh damn, slanging those chicken sandwiches that motherfuckers are losing their lives over.
Yeah, I know,
you are a death merchant, bro.
Yeah, basically. In fact, I got a story about them sandwiches. So the sandwich has become a regular menu item, and at least for us, I guess my head manager's in charge. Actually, we sell so many of them that we cut them off at like 8 to 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And there's this guy who comes by like at 11 o'clock at night, and he doesn't even stop by the driver's window. He pulls up and is like, "Are you guys open?" I'm like, "The lights are on." And I'm like, "Sir, we got a procedure here. You got to go back to the window." And he was like, "I was just there." I'm like, "Sir, I was just here, and we didn't hear you buzz or anything." He just went to the window straight like that, and then I told him, "I'm sorry, sir, but just so you know, before you order, we don't have the sandwiches." And he was like, "Really? Well, why the fuck not?"
You pull your ass out that little tiny window, right?
Yeah, as I'm backing up towards the back of the thing. No,
you get the tweakers that walk up to the drive-through window or ride up on like a bicycle or some shit, or like some gas-powered razor scooter that they jury-rigged in their backyard.
We've had our drunks because there is a club nearby, and there's a guy. He's kind of creepy. He always comes up looking like a zombie, and he comes up and he like bumps against the window, and and like bumps his head against the glass. And finally, we point him over towards the window, and he's like he's trying to stumble with his words, and he's like, "Can I get a 2-piece?" Like mumbling, and I'm like, "Okay." And then he's fumbling around in his wallet for hours, trying to grab his credit card, and we've already grabbed the 2-piece and are trying to hand it to him out the window and said, "Here, just take it already."
Shit, I've been there. Not at the drive-up. I don't drink and drive. But...
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think everybody at some point, I mean, shoot, even I worked fast food at one point, and I remember at Arby's, the most popular thing was not the roast beef, it was the chicken tenders.
Weird.
And our boss would never order the chicken tenders. We would run out of chicken tenders by the by the middle of the week. We would get our orders in, and then by I think 3 days past, they would be sold out. But she never ordered more.
Well,
so we always run out.
Our problem in our restaurant is half the time the stuff comes frozen. Okay, stuff comes frozen. So obviously we've got to give some of it time to thaw out. Okay,
right.
So like the night before or whatnot. Well, half the time they'll go through all of it that's been thawed. By the evening shift. Well, we'll run out of the damn shift by the time the mid shift comes. So,
well, definitely you gotta make sure you rotate that stock though. Make sure you rotate that stock and don't just use the newest box that came in.
My first job was actually Taco Bell, man. So I dealt with a lot of that too.
And shit like crazy, but it'll still be frozen, and then we'll still have to tell the customers we're out of tenders. What? Why are we out of tenders?
See, we never really had hot ticket items like that, but definitely one thing that I took note of working at Taco Bell is always like those like weird sort of skinny little housewife type, I don't know what you call them, like those girls that you imagine post a lot to Instagram and buy a lot of Starbucks, seem to exclusively eat the chicken quesadillas. And I don't know if they think it's healthy. You're at Taco Bell, man. Nothing here is healthy. That's just the way that it is. And then boiling hot nacho cheese is my other takeaway from that. Once got a whole vat of that spilled on me, I felt like that motherfucker in RoboCop gets dipped in the radiation tank or whatever. Like he's all melting. It's horrible.
I love it when you have returning customers. You know that they're returning customers because you see them every day in the drive-thru, and they come with things that you know that they know are not on the menu anymore.
It's hard to let go.
Yes. So, we should probably bring back around to the characters.
Sorry, Jay.
I guess, huh?
Okay.
That's all right.
Griping this about the fast food business. Sorry.
Well, we could use this as a segue, talking about weird and unusual customers and and pseudo customers. Might be a good segue into the Jay and Silent Bob characters, because they are definitely synonymous with the Kevin Smith universe.
Selling drugs on a street corner, at least casual drugs, is kind of a lost art for him, you know? Like, it used to be, you roll up
for him, but yeah.
I mean, knowing a weed spot used to be a thing. Now you can just go to a store, which is entirely weird to me. I mean, at least in states where that shit's a thing, you know?
I was going to say, it's not like that here.
No.
Yeah, I can just rock up in a store like I'm ordering some chicken sandwiches and I can get all type of bud, you know?
Well,
One of these days, I would love to visit one of those just because it would be cool to see it. But this was the first time ever that we got to see Jay and Silent Bob, who basically became a staple in all of his movies up until Jersey Girl, which I think was the first time that they were not involved in.
Yeah, that's when we have Dante also is saying to Jay, "Why do you always have to sell drugs in front of me?"
He's not selling drugs. He's selling herbal supplements. I don't think they're out there dealing crack rocks, you know?
Yeah, well, wasn't there that one scene where it's like, I think Dante says, I don't want you selling drugs. And he's like, I'm not selling drugs. And the girl comes up, what do you got? Well, I got...
Isn't it shortly after that where they put the I smoke cock thing or whatever on the door?
I suck cock. Yeah, that's what...
Right. I always found, Jay kind of a little too over the top, but I guess in his later appearances they smoothed off some of those edges. Bob, though, it's like it's great when you have a character that's used just right, and he's kind of window dressing. He literally is the straight man to the crazy that is Jay. Until every now and then he says something, and it's either this wise thing or it's just a perfectly timed little something, like I think it was in Dogma where they did the Indiana Jones reference, the no ticket.
Yeah.
Love that.
There's some great subtleties with Jay and Clerks, though, like when they spark up that blunt and then he just bolts. Like, I kind of wish I knew that trick in high school, or I did, but I never thought to apply it,
One thing I found very interesting in the background, I always kind of knew this, but they were very explicit in the background that I read that Jay basically is Jason Mewes, but Mewes, when he filmed Clerks, he was apparently extremely camera shy. He apparently did not he just did this stuff without thinking about it. But when he had to do it for an audience, he had to think about it. It was difficult. So I find it kind of interesting that he actually went on to have a decent acting career. He's been in a bunch of stuff, not just involved with Kevin Smith. Was that?
He's been in quite a few horror films.
Yeah. I actually enjoyed his part in Feast. I still can't believe I enjoyed Feast, but I did.
Feast
is awesome. That fucking movie, dude. I used to have the poster on my door for years for Feast.
Shoot, the trilogy as a whole for Feast was always fun. I really liked Feast.
In a roundabout way, that is sort of takes him back to the Kevin Smith stuff because Ben Affleck was involved, I believe, in producing Feast and maybe some other.
He was a producer, yeah.
Yeah, so.
But so that I just found that kind of interesting, as well as the fact that apparently Kevin Smith was not originally going to be Silent Bob; he was going to be Randall. And then they just decided, Jeff Anderson, oh man, he'd be a great Randall.
Well, they've got an actual funny little bit where you can, in one of the special features of Clerks X, that has the auditions, and you get to see Randall basically auditioning as Jay, which I thought was kind of cool.
Interesting.
And the dude who ends up playing what's his face, Rick Darris or whatever his name is the one who was supposed to play Dante. So they actually did sort of like a musical chairs with the cast until they found the ones that were just right. And I think they did in the end find the ones that were right for the roles.
For sure.
The actors were perfect for the roles.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we kind of skipped over some character shit too here because, what do you guys think of Randall?
Randall. He's a character.
He's a character. He's an abrasive, rude ass, and I would never want him to wait on me. And I also am highly offended by people who behave that way. But I have had moments where I wished I could do that.
I love having that coworker that's like Randall that just does not give a fuck. For them, it is totally like a disposable position, you know, because granted, it is annoying to have to deal and like clean up their messes and stuff.
Well, yeah.
You never want to bring home to your mother, but
Right.
you always want to do something with him or like him.
You don't want to be stuck with him, but you wouldn't mind being in the same room and with.
Right, like I just want to
fly on
witness
the
that
wall.
shit after I've clocked out, you know.
It's like just several moments, like the whole thing where he's sitting on the counter reading the paper, and the woman comes to him for the advice on the movies, and he's like, I don't watch movies. And she's like, well, what have you heard about him? I find it best to stay out of other people's affairs.
Yes.
And then she turns around and turns back the same two movies. What about these two? They suck. And then just, you know, I love
I don't
that.
appreciate your ruse.
Yes, I don't appreciate your ruse, ma'am.
Your ruse, your
Yeah.
clever attempt to trick me. Like
Right.
And he's on the phone with all those porno names.
Yes. I always
That was
loved
good.
that.
Happy Scrappy. What was it? Happy
Scrappy hero pups.
What was that movie again? Oh,
Metal
man.
to the KY connection obviously has been the thing I
And he
took away from
played
that
it all in
today.
front of a mother and her.
Well, apparently Jeff Anderson refused to do that in front of a child. He performed it, and then they filmed the other side of that as reaction shots to the you know what I mean? Like, because he was, I think what I heard in the interviews was like, he was like, eventually my mom's going to watch this, and I don't want her to think I said that to a child or something.
That's fair. I
And
mean,
then you
Yeah,
also-
that makes sense.
Speaking of, you also had a scene where he sells cigarettes to the child, and
I love
The
that.
4-year-old.
Because he's clearly selling it. What did he think it was a
Yes.
midget? I mean, he can't be not. He's reaching
Right.
down to hand it to the kid. Like he just
Oh, right.
Well,
yeah,
yeah, he literally does not care. That's the point, I think, at the whole of it.
and what does end up happening to Dante later? Even though I think Dante probably got it. I think it would have been worse. I don't know what the rules are like in New Jersey, but if that had happened in Virginia, I'm pretty sure Dante would have gotten more than just a $500 fine for that.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I think that's exactly why I would not want to work with someone like that. But like I said, seeing it unfold, maybe.
It's like those characters that you see on any type of thing. They're amusing characters to watch, have all
Right.
the other characters sweat, but you would never want to know those characters in real life.
Right.
Oh, I've
Like, would
definitely
you-
known those characters for sure. Like the
Well, I've
dude,
known people like that too.
this
They're
one
like
guy,
a-
one time that I worked at this gas station, like he just did not give a fuck. For him, it was like a part-time gig, exactly like that. He just didn't
Mhm.
care, and we would goad him into stuff sometimes.
Mhm.
And I don't know how we got on a fucking thing this one day. I don't even remember how it started anymore, but we were like, fuck the squeegee. And then we eventually basically encouraged him to break the squeegee, and he just broke it. But right as he broke it, the manager walked out. And so he got fired on the spot. It was fucking hilarious, dude.
Hmm.
And he was
Oh.
also that dude that you would bail on. Like, I was supposed to take him to a Slayer concert with me once, and I just purposely took off early from work so that I didn't have to take that motherfucker to the Slayer concert.
On the other hand, some of the conversations he and Dante have, I've been in those conversations many times at work. The in-depth movie discussions and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, I did love the Jaws reference, as we said before, with the salsa shark.
Salsa shark.
Especially because that was, as we mentioned when we covered Jaws, that was one of my favorite parts in the movie. The part where Quint's like, you go into cage go into water.
Shark in the
Sharks
water.
in the water. Shark. Hell. And then
sorry,
here it's like just substitute salsa for water. You got the same idea.
It's kind of almost scarier in salsa because salsa is thick and probably
That's
harder.
true.
To
You
swim
won't
in,
see
you
it
know what I
coming.
mean? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Brandon. What were you saying?
No, it was just like Grant's like sharks in the salt. But,
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that I feel like defines Kevin Smith as a whole is the conversation. I mean,
Oh,
that
yes.
really is Kevin Smith to a T.
Right.
His movies all have that particular conversational
Mm-hmm.
feel to them. Even Jersey Girl has that feel to it.
It's
Which-
actually.
And that's the thing is though, all of them. I mean, it's just sort of like watching a Woody Allen film. When you watch a Woody Allen film, you can always tell it's a Woody Allen film or a Wes Anderson film. You can always tell when you're watching a Wes Anderson film that it's a Wes Anderson film.
Well, actually, I was going to say it's appropriate that this film came out the same year and was cross-marketed by Miramax with Pulp Fiction, because it's the same thing with the Tarantino film. You know, you're watching a Tarantino film.
Right.
yeah.
Like
one
the
of-
Kevin Smith shit, definitely people have bigger vocabularies than you normally would expect to hear from people that are also using that type of language sometimes, you know?
Well, that's one of the hallmarks of both of their films, is the in-depth pop culture conversation and the extensive and offensive language. The biggest difference, I think, between the two is that Tarantino's films are more action-oriented, and particularly he loves a little of the old ultra-violence. And Smith is a little bit more about kind of just mundane, everyday life sort of things. You know what I mean? Like, even when he gets into the supernatural, like Dogma, most of the action is still people talking, you know? So, yeah. So I think that, but it is kind of cool that they have those connections, but they're also different, you know?
For sure. Sorry
One
I cut
day
you off
we'll
there
be-
again, Brandon. You go ahead and cut me off a couple of times. We'll balance it out.
But it's, well, again, it's just that conversation. It does rule the Kevin Smith film. I don't think anybody here would say that it. I don't know. I have not watched Tusk. It's the only one I have not seen.
Dude, I think you're going to love it.
Though I have, and of course the new Jay and Silent Bob film. I have not seen that one
Right.
either.
Oh, the reboot.
But
They're
I've heard fun things about
they're
it.
also talking about a Clerks 3 eventually coming out.
Well, they've been talking about that for years. Who knows if it'll actually come true, but yeah.
It's probably more likely than not, considering how much they like going back to the welfare stuff anymore. And
Right.
considering there was a fair amount of hype around the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Tusk, though, you should fuck with, dude. Like, it's definitely, like, you know, short and sweet with it. It's equally stupid and disturbing.
It is disturbing.
It's definitely stupid too, but that's I think that's where a lot of people were thrown off with it. They thought he was trying to do like some legit horror film, but when you watch it, it plays very much like he is just trying to be as silly as possible, but at the same time trying to legitimately fuck you up a little bit. So you should put it on your list, Brandon.
All right. So Dante is ultimately going in between having ideas and fancies on two different women, which we haven't yet. So on the one hand, he's got Veronica. On the other hand, he's got one of his exes who is supposedly getting married that he didn't know about until his this day shift at this
Right.
job. So, and her name is Caitlin Brie. So,
on the one hand, Veronica makes some shit and is there, you know. And on the other hand, she's that girl that he always wanted, but he can't entirely have.
The one that got away.
The one that got away, yeah.
Right. That hits home with me particularly strong because definitely I've been in that position where it's like, yeah, sort of, granted I was in that like when I was like 17, not a fucking adult like Dante, but you kind of mythologize that first love. She's exactly that, the one that got away, right? Like that girl that you always wished you could have figured it out with, you know. And there was definitely time. I mean, that part of Clerks is definitely the element of it that rings most true to me because I've definitely fucked up other relationships for that Caitlin Bree chick.
Well, there's always that chick that you always wish that you could have boned, or the fact that or the one that you actually wanted to be with.
I wish I had some motherfucker like Silent Bob to come up to me and tell me some shit. Like, if you want to find women in the world, not all of them bring you lasagna at work, man.
Most of them just cheat on you.
Yeah.
It's a cynical message, but it is an interesting way for Bob to break his silence.
And it's true shit, you know. That's 100% true. Like,
it's definitely
I don't
true
know
in the
about,
context of this one.
yeah, like situationally, obviously, but
well, they had that conversation where he describes Caitlin's infidelity, and it was interesting. And then of course, Dante freaks out when Veronica tells him one of the probably probably one of the most famous. There are few numbers that have become enshrined in pop culture because of various things, and 37 is definitely enshrined.
Well, see, that's the thing. At least he was the last one. And I love fucking Randall's way that he helps him out by telling him, like, at least I wasn't 36, you know?
Yeah, the ostrich syndrome. Yeah, but yeah. And, I like the part where Veronica comes. I like the part where Veronica comes and brings him the lasagna. And she's like, "Hey, Randall," and he goes, 37.
Yeah. He's like,
and then he's just like,
yeah.
Yes.
the rest of the movie.
You gotta have that fucking friend.
Well, I remember in the cartoon.
That was. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I remember in the cartoon they also made fun of the Caitlin character a bit, and her infidelity quite a few times. It's like, well, you know, I always wondered why I was invited to that painter's birthday party. As she's in a three-way with two painters.
Well, and apparently that joke is one of the things that saved the movie from obscurity in the first place. Not to put too much credence on someone that we now know as a colossal douchebag, but this film did come out when Miramax was very much the baby of the Weinstein brothers, and apparently Harvey Weinstein walked out of the movie 15 minutes in the first time he watched it because he was offended by that cigarette thing. But they got him to watch it again, and the guy whose name is Tusk, interestingly enough, said, "Stay put until 37." That was what he told him, supposedly. And apparently, by the time that rolled around, Weinstein was laughing so loud, everyone in the theater heard him. And so it was like, okay. So I guess he did a few good things for the world before all the not so good.
I don't want to be the odd man out here, though. Right. But and I'm not saying that I appreciate that fucking Weinstein did that shit to women. It's fucked up, but I like that it makes it easier to hate him. You know,
Yeah.
like you kind of want to hate like sleazy movie producers, billionaire type dudes like that, anyways, or whatever. And just knowing that he's an absolute fuckbag makes it a little easier for me to justify hating him. So,
And I do like that the backstory is that he was the hardest sell on Miramax. Everyone else loved the film. He was the hard sell. So it's like it might have happened regardless, but it definitely, given the fact that this was literally the closest thing to a shoestring budget a film like this gets,
right.
It really isn't remarkable that it ended up where it did. But yeah.
Oh shit!
I gotta wonder if it would have actually.
Hey, Tim.
Guys,
Hey.
Was that not Tim?
Oh,
It is. I thought it was Dustin. I saw horrors, and I was like,
Nope. So Tim, have you ever seen Clerks?
yeah, I've seen Clerks 1 and 2, the cartoon, and the one where Jay and Silent Bob go on like a road trip. I forget what it's called.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, or
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
and what did you think of the original Clerks?
Funny. My favorite part of the whole movie is when that. What are you guys doing that yet? Like,
Yeah. We did all that, but I figured I'd ask you what your opinion was.
yeah, like Pat Benatar said, bro, hit me with your best shot. Fire away.
Well, we haven't done favorite scenes yet, but we definitely have kind of touched on them.
it's really funny, and I like that it's in black and white. That adds to the humor also.
Okay.
Right?
My favorite scene is when the guy comes in and he's like, here's the guy over talking, like the guy overhears him and I forget the guy's names.
Randall.
Yeah, Randall and the other guy, an accountant. He overhears them talking, and he comes up and he said, "Why are you guys talking like that?
I'm highly offended.
I'm highly offended." And then he's like,
You think that's offensive? Check this out.
"Oh God!" He's hilarious.
That was
you notice what that guy was carrying, right? I never really noticed this either until I looked at it at IMDb. But you know, the topic of the discussion at that point was about cleaning, and he's carrying cleaning supplies. It's like paper towels and windows.
Yeah, he is totally buying paper towels. That's fucking funny. He's about to go mop some jizz himself.
Oh, that.
There's several questions I have for you guys.
Actually, that's a good one thing we didn't touch on, and that's a good thing. The guy that plays that guy plays like 4 different parts in the film. There's about 4 or 5 people who play multiple parts throughout the movie.
Did not know that.
Well, the producer, Scott Mosier, plays, I think, 3 different roles.
Isn't he Snowball or whatever?
Yes, he is. And he's also the angry dude that challenges them to the hockey game and throws their ball away.
Wait, what? How? Did they put like a fake beard on him or something?
No, he shaved his beard. And apparently, they joke in the commentary that the only special effect they did was having both of them in the same scene.
That blows my mind right now. Like, I did not know that at all.
But yeah, Mosier is like Kevin Smith's bud. They've done a lot of stuff together.
They sure have.
This was there. But yeah, he's credited as William, the idiot man-child, angry hockey-playing customer, and angry mourner. Walt Flanagan. Yeah. Walt Flanagan is credited as woolen cap smoker, Eggman, offended customer, and cat-admiring bitter customer. David Klein is hunting cap smoking boy, low IQ video customer, hubcap searching customer, angry mourner, and angry crowd at door. Etc. You got several people that have
do it, when you have like a small group of people doing a movie like that. I mean, my only
And
experience with doing like short films, I did do a short film a few years ago, and I ended up having to like put the mask and the getup on to be the killer during a couple of scenes because I had to shoot him after the fact for like special effects and shit. And it's just how you got to do it. I think that's super fucking rad, though. Like the Scott Mosier thing, especially, is mind blowing to me.
Well, I've only been on a couple film sets, and the last one was a local production that I don't know if it ever saw the light of day. I hope it did, but I don't. But I played 2 different roles as an extra there. But apparently, Kevin Smith put out a couple roles for extras here that not enough people showed up. Like he put out calls for extras, and just no one showed up. So he's like, "Okay, well, I need you to do a couple parts then." And it's like, yeah, that's kind of a shame, you know. It's like, admittedly, it can be hard to get the word out if you're an up and coming, you know, director. But yeah,
well, you know, at the end of the day, go buy yourself a few cases of Natty Ice and some Little Caesars pizza, and you just put free beer and pizza, and people will show up for sure.
True. Or free Gatorade.
Tell them we got punch and pie.
And you just tell them, like, here's the thing. You want that free beer and pizza? You gotta, like, you know, shoot a little scene with us real quick.
Or tell them they got pumpkin dance.
Go get a Gatorade. There aren't any. Exactly.
Gatorade, yeah. That would be such a cool gimmick for, like, a Clerks fan film is, like, free Gatorade.
Right.
Gatorade.
Right.
Anyway.
So, yeah. But yeah, that one dude, what's his name? David Klein. Like I said, he's the one who, when they do that sequence where they're complaining about the customers, and you have the same 3 customers that are in both shops. And so he's the one. It's one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. It's something like, "Yeah, that one with that guy that was in that movie with the."
I love that one, and I love the. What do you mean you don't have ice? You mean I got to drink this coffee hot? I love.
I used to think that was hilarious, but I loved iced coffee. But still, the fact that he's so indignant about it, I do find that funny.
They kind of almost predicted the iced coffee thing when you think about it, right there.
If I had a favorite scene, I would have to say it was when Caitlin Bree came out of the back and was
after fucking the dead guy.
Oh, Dante, you were so good back there. How did you get here so fast?
He teleports. I don't know. I like the scene where the old dude's going back there in the first place.
Oh, and he's asking about the toilet paper and the dirty magazine.
Yeah. Oh man, it's called Wreck My.
Oh, Sonny boy.
What are those magazines back there? What, porno mags? Yeah, I love the cartoons they draw.
No, yeah, that one over there. They got the bigger titties in there. I love that.
And then he dies in the bathroom.
A nice subtle part of that scene is where he's like, "Be careful of those lights. They got stuff inside that gives you cancer." And he's like, "I had a friend that chewed light bulbs in the circus." And Dante's like, "And he got cancer from chewing light bulbs?" And the dude's like, "No, got hit by a bus."
Yeah.
Because that made so much sense.
There are so many scenes from this movie that probably are quotable.
Oh yeah.
But then you could say the same thing about Mallrats.
Oh yeah. Mallrats in a lot of ways was Clerks with a bigger budget. I mean, it really was, and they had some great stuff in it. Though I love Stan Lee's part in the film, and there's some good stuff there. But
well, I mean, a lot of Kevin Smith's early work was kind of a derivative of the same thing. Even Chasing Amy, to a point, was kind of just a rework of Clerks, but to fit a different narrative.
Well, I did like. I don't know. I know, Brandon, you watched a lot of the special features. I don't know how many other people watched. You watched the funeral scene, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that was cool, that the animated thing that
Yeah.
they did for the funeral scene. On
Did
that,
anyone else get to watch that?
No, I avoided special features again. I think I'm trying to go for like a pure view of the film as just the film.
They had originally thought about actually filming the scene in the funeral home. Julie Dwyer, I think her name was. Instead, they do that 5-minute Slater cut with Dante trying to pretend he's one of the
it's too expensive.
It was too expensive. They couldn't afford it. But they went back.
But it worked out better that way.
Yeah, I think it did. But I like this. They animated in the style of the animated series. They animated a short film that is that scene.
Yeah, I saw you guys mention that in the chat.
And they brought in Joey Lauren Adams, who played Alyssa in Chasing Amy, to revoice that character. And they make reference to the finger cuffs joke from Chasing Amy and what have you. But that was an interesting little way of tying it in together, I thought. But
for sure.
Chasing Amy was his best one, I think. But even that one fell victim to certain juvenile things.
Well, I mean, the one time that when he tried to do something different initially, he did Jersey Girl, which kind of flopped. And then after Jersey Girl, there were a couple of other attempts to go off, such as Red State, which was decent. Of course, Tusk. And then, of course, then he kind of fell back into the well again when he did Yoga Hosers.
Oh my god!
But he fell a bit too deep into the well. Yoga Hosers.
I tried to like that movie so hard, and it just. I mean, I don't want to influence any of your guys' opinion, but god damn.
He's also gotten a little more into television. I recently watched a Flash episode he directed that had Jason Mewes in it. I think he did a couple others and a couple of Supergirl episodes.
He wrote an entire entire storyline for Green Arrow, which
should have been the thing. That's one of my favorite runs of Green Arrow.
Oh, it was awesome. Let's go. Still got those runs in hardback.
Yeah, I just recently fucking collected all of it, man. My girlfriend helped me out a ton. Shouts out to because she's definitely gonna listen to this. You know, it's like Kevin. I think Judd Winnick is the other writer on it for the majority of it. I got all 9 volumes of it. It felt really good to finally complete that. But Green Arrow Quiver. If you guys want to read some good Kevin Smith comics, check that out immediately.
Can I tell you guys my favorite scene in Mallrats?
Go right ahead.
Which one's that?
It's the scene where he gets the pretzels and then he puts his finger up his butt and then gives it to the dad. Then he gets sick.
Admittedly, that guy was such a dick. It was kind of funny seeing him suffer.
Was it Mike?
And they kind of recreate that.
I think if I had a favorite scene of Mallrats, it would be the Wonder Woman and Superman joke.
I just like all the parts where Silent Bob tries to use the Force.
Oh,
my favorite's definitely where his girlfriend basically breaks up with him because he's too busy playing NHL on the Sega Saturn. Like, that rung so true to me because there was definitely a period in high school where my jam was like NHLPA Pro Hockey 93 on the Sega Genesis, and I did not give a fuck who was trying to hang out at my house. Like, if there was someone down to play hockey, I was down. And
So
I was also
the,
playing a lot of ball
stick.
hockey like that. Sorry, bud.
So actually, that's a good segue because we might as well get back to where we were and talk about that, because there were 2 times where they kind of just said, fuck it, and we're going to just close the shop anyway. One was for the funeral scene, which we discussed, and the other was for the hockey scene, which Didn't last very long, but
Yeah.
was still a kind of cool and unique
They
scene.
only brought one fucking ball.
I brought the orange one and the orange one.
See, that's a noob move too. Coming from someone that used to play a lot of like drunk ball hockey, you
Right.
always come with like the tennis tube, right? Like you can buy them right there at Big Five, where it's like a tennis tube full of like 5 hockey balls. That shit set up, and you're good to go. You can lose balls all day. We used to chuck them in the river a lot of the time on accident, because the best parking lot right here to play is like right at the riverfront. So whoever's got that like north facing goal or whatever is gonna end up getting balls in the river.
Well, it was either hockey or football for me when I was growing up.
Well, I'm Canadian, bro, so like hockey is sort of an inherent thing that you eventually have to fuck with, And I just never took to other sports. Like you put a baseball in my hand. Like I played baseball for 8 years. I'm terrible at it, but I did it because it's kind of the organized sport down here. Football was never really my deal, but hockey, for some reason, like even drunk, I can skate my ass off and puck handle like a beast. So.
The weird irony is I am bored to tears by baseball, and I've never cared for hockey, and those are the 2 professional sports that I have been to professional games.
How the hell? Well, I mean, each their own. Hockey to me is like, well, again, I'm predisposed to love the shit. So
Definitely, and I'm sure Brandon will agree. If you have not checked out Arrogant Worms, We Like Hockey, good song.
Well, they're a good Canadian band.
Yes, they are. They are.
Oh,
especially Cara Juice's Murder.
I'll be looking that up as soon as we're done with this.
Arrogant Worms are a parody band. Well, not parody band, but a comedy-centric band from Canada. But we had those 2 scenes. And of course, the dick that basically said, "Well, I need my cigarettes, so screw you," and chucked the ball basically.
Right.
After goading them on.
Right down the gutter.
But
I mean, they all float down there. So they all should have came back up to the top.
They all float down.
But I look at the cigarette thing, and it always used to cause me problems to watch it. Because early on, and now the first time I watched it didn't bother me as much, because the first time I watched it, I didn't have any professional experience, and it was just a thing. But after getting some experience in my field, when I came back to it the second time, it disturbed me more, because I've seen it to where, and this is back in earlier days when I was working in mental health. We would take the van on payday down to the tobacco store, and the people who would cash most of their paychecks, most of their disability checks, on the cigarettes, and that would be it. They would beg for food and barely scrape by because they needed the cigarettes. The cigarettes were the very first thing in their life. And I keep thinking to myself, so whenever they would get a cigarette, the pack of cigarette, I would just reassociate it with that whole idea of that control it really just has over the people. And of course, the other thought is, I'm glad I never started smoking.
I wish I never had,
And the weird irony is that apparently that was Kevin Smith's personal politics leaking through. And like I said, it comes across as so preachy, he almost lost a movie deal because of it. But then the irony is he started smoking afterwards. And now he's a heavy smoker, apparently. Or he was, at least.
Well, I'll tell you right now, as a lifelong fucking nicotine addict, it's a stupid habit. So anyone listening to this that's ever even, been tempted by the shit, just stay away from it. It's fucking expensive, bro. Like $6 to $8 a pack, depending on where you live. And
as somebody who works with substance abuse, I have been told this by people that have been addicted to crack, heroin, and other substances, and they've all told me that cigarettes are the hardest to quit.
It's such a conversational thing. I'm literally smoking a fucking cigarette right now, dude, because like it feels nice to have something in your hand.
And I'm totally out at the moment. So I'm a smoker. So
yeah, and again, let me tell there's no offense to you people who do. I mean, the people who smoke. It's just it's a hard habit. When you start,
I think at this point in the game, dude, any of us that smoke that take offense at anti-smoking sentiment are stupid, because we all wish that we didn't smoke. It costs a ton of money, and it will fuck you up.
Like people who try to quit.
Dude, I used to skateboard like crazy, and never get out of breath. Now I get out of breath like walking down the block. It's fucking ridiculous.
Now, I will say, getting just a slight detour from this, the part where I do feel like I have experienced things kind of like this before. The scene that starts that whole anti-smoking tirade, where the guy you find out is actually a gum representative, a gum salesman. He's sitting. He comes in, just gets coffee. He's like, "You mind if I sit here while I drink this?" And Dante's like, "Yeah, go ahead." And then dude comes in. "You want cigarettes? Are you sure about that?" There are very few things more annoying, rude, just plain, what the hell is wrong with you, than going into a place of business and accosting customers unbidden. It's you may especially if you're just trying to make a buck. I mean, if the guy had been a hardcore anti-smoking crusader and he was just doing it out of the goodness of his heart, but he was doing it to make a buck. That dude was a slime bag to do that. I think anyone who's worked in customer service would at least kind of feel a little bit of that.
I think that rings truer than we'd like it to.
Yeah, even professionally, I mean, in my business, you always have to be careful. I mean, I just got back from a conference last week, mental health conference all across the board, and you always had to be careful of people masquerading as people that they are not in order to kind of sell you on something or service. Trying to get those insurance dollars, but it's a terrible thing to see that happen. But I like that scene because it did kind of pull it there, put you there in a situation that has happened in a lot of cases. Now we've been through most of the essential plot, but we've been kind of skirting around the end, where we talked a little bit about the guy who died, and of course the scene where where he had been kind of between two women, essentially, and then ends up pretty much losing them both, essentially, by being as undecisive as he is.
Well, and also because Randall decided to help.
And then, of course, that leads to the big fight between him and Randall, and that sort of going back to what I had said originally that bothered me about Dante as just his general wishy-washiness, which kind of led him to his continued suffering is really his own doing in a lot of those senses.
Yeah,
he really is. I mean, Randall had said, you blame me for all of it, but you're the one who's doing half of this stuff. And it's true. He's still, despite Randall, he really is the architect to most of his own problems.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I've been in that position where I've done that same kind of stuff, and that's totally true. The way you just described it, you are the fucking person that's, because Dante's whole thing is he doesn't know how to appreciate what he has, and he's constantly complaining and blaming other people for stuff that's probably his own fault, you know. Like there's the running thing that he could be doing something better with his life by going to school throughout Clerks, you know, or he could be making something of himself, but instead he's content to just hang out with Randall at this fucking convenience store, you know. And he's always pining for the chick that he doesn't have, even though he's got like a really good one, you know. And
I mean, yeah.
I've been in that
I agree
fucking
with
position, man. And, you know, at the time, you don't realize how much of an idiot you're being. And sometimes it takes somebody like fucking Randall, not that I've ever been enough to have that, but sometimes it takes somebody like that kind of reality checks you a little bit. And they're like, dude, you got a lot better than a lot of other people. Yeah.
Actually, Tim, I know we hadn't gotten to you as much about those because we've been talking a bit about before you got here. Do you know of anybody that would be kind of a Dante in your past history of work situation?
No, not really.
Or how about a Randall?
There were some kids in class that were always really rude to them.
I can always imagine, like the class clown, you mean?
No, he would like he'd cuss out the teacher. He'd actually cuss out the teacher and like make the teacher feel bad. One time the teacher, right?
Dang.
That's not good.
Well, beyond class clown, that's different. That's a different thing. That's beyond even Randall at that point.
Yeah, see, I don't know if Randall really is as bad as we make him out to be, too. Randall is kind of, because again, when you're at one of those places, like a place of work, we all attach like way too much sort of personal shit to a place of work. At the end of the day, you are just a dude that fills a fucking slot with a name tag at those types of jobs, you know?
At those types of jobs, yes. I've always tried very hard to avoid jobs that have no personal meaning. I've failed occasionally, but I have tried. But sometimes you get stuck with people who do see it that way. And that was why, I mean, I had a job working in a movie theater, but I had to deal with a bunch of high schoolers who had never had a job before, or it was like their second or third job. And they were more the Randall mentality of, well, this is boring. I don't really feel like being here today. I don't feel like working, whatever.
And you're the one stuck with it.
And I'm the one stuck with it, trying to be the voice of reason, but also trying to keep things running. Because when you got all of them behaving that way, someone's got to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it comes back. I forget which one of you said it, but we all are. A lot of us are the Dante, but we work with Randall, and that's kind of the thing, you know. I've only had a couple of jobs where I got to be the Randall, but it wasn't last.
Yeah, I've rarely, if ever, gone. I don't think I've ever gone full Randall, but I've had a couple jobs where I wanted to.
I definitely have never went full Randall in terms of customer. I always wanted people to like me.
Right.
But
I've always wanted to.
I've been Randall in the sense that I used to be the dude like listening to Steve Miller Band and smoking blunts in my car and like just not giving a shit. Yeah.
Actually, it is interesting that so far no one has mentioned his famous line. This job would be great if it weren't for fucking customers.
Well, 'cause I think it's such a given, you know. I think that's that line in Clerks that rings true to you no matter whether you're a Dante or a Randall.
Right.
Like it is just a fact. And it speaks so much to the fact that all of us are shitty. That's one thing that I was thinking about today with Clerks is like all of us are shitty customers sometimes, you know. We ask a little bit too much. Or we ask more than those people's pay grade fucking, you know, justifies sometimes.
Here's a question that might sound like a smart question, but it's really a dumb question. Is the customer always right?
No.
You know, when I worked in that fish store, we had a Dilbert strip up on our wall, and I have always come back to this. I have looked for this strip, a copy of it for myself, and I can't find it. But it's a Dilbert strip that features Dogbert, and it's called Dogbert's Rules of Management. And he's up in front of the class. He's got his pointer, and it's like 3 panels. And it's like first one is like Dogbert's Rules of Management. 1, the customer is always right. 2, you see a very angry Dogbert holding the pointer very menacingly. They must be punished for their arrogance. And I feel like Randall probably has that as his mantra.
Dude, fun fact, I used to actually draw a little comic strip when I worked as a janitor at this place for a while. And it was Moose and Squirrel. Like, it was Rocky and Bullwinkle for sure.
Well, yeah.
And it was just like workplace situational Dilbert type shit.
Right.
And all the employees loved it, but management came down once and saw them all in this like pegboard that we used to use.
Mm-hmm.
And they shut my ass down. They straight up told me like I can't do the comic anymore.
I used to write random quotes on the assignment board at the restaurant I worked at. At the time, I was a big fan of Family Guy. I've gotten over it since then, but I was at the time. But it wasn't always Family Guy. There was some really random stuff that found its way up there. But usually it was something snarky or whatever. But it was fun. Management had mixed feelings about it.
It's a good way to pass the time when you're like break room in it,
Right.
That's basically what I would do. And a big part of my repertoire was stuff about, because we were janitors, so a lot of it was like, oh, toilet's busy, I'm just gonna piss in the garbage can kind of thing, and it'd be like a moose pissing in a garbage can. They got fucking super like they came down and didn't even just say that we couldn't post comics on the thing anymore. They specifically came to talk to me. Like, you could have just said no more posting cartoons on the pegboard, and I wouldn't have felt personally attacked here, bro. Like, you fucking came and talked to me directly. That's a little nuts.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we? I was going to say, why don't we move to the last part of this to get through the rest of the plot, which is the ending, which, depending on which version you watched,
could be very different.
Could make it very different. One version would make the animated series and the sequel kind of irrelevant, whereas the other one kind of just basically has an ending that leaves it open. So, has everybody seen both endings of Clerks?
No, I think I've only ever seen the standard.
I've seen clips of the original ending. I didn't budget enough time to watch the uncut version, and I'm very annoyed about that.
That was the extended version, right?
Yeah. Tim, have you seen the original, the dark ending of Clerks?
Dark ending?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I forgot. Special feature?
All right. Well, let me tell you the dark ending for everybody to know. We've already talked about spoilers anyway. So somebody comes in and they basically guns down and kills Dante and Randall at the end.
What the fuck?
I don't think they kill Randall. Do they?
Yeah, they kill both.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
So it's a very dark ending, which is why I say you can't really have any more movies after that.
Right.
So obviously they did not go with that canonically, but that was the original way they ended it, but they decided to change that up after a while. What do you think that would have been the preferred ending? To me, it felt like it destroyed the tone.
Yeah,
doing it that way at the end.
I would agree. I think that kind of fucking ruins the whole vibe of the movie.
It goes from being cynical to being straight up bleak. I mean, it's apparently Smith was heavily influenced by David Lynch and Spike Lee, and I think that ending was supposed to be an homage to Do the Right Thing or something along those lines, but it's that's more of a Lars von Trier ending.
Well, fucking,
Yeah.
Yeah.
influenced by David Lynch and have like an elaborate zoom on an ear or something. You don't need to fucking kill everyone at the end of the movie.
Right. Well, apparently the original version, the original script was much more Lynchian. With just very kind of it was going to take place more at night, and it was just the weird customers that come in. And I'll admit, if David Lynch got it in his head to do a convenience store movie, it might be pretty awesome.
Oh, dude,
But-
all the weird, drugged out, fucking weird
Right.
tweaker people that you see.
It would be
jobs like that.
It would be something like Frank Sinatra's Man with the Golden Arm, except Eraserhead style.
You could have some weird drug trip shit and like a murder sequence or like a whole murder plot that you get entwined in at a convenience store, to be honest.
Yeah. You could have all kinds of weirdness.
Be something
I will. I mean, I'll say during the time I worked in the little time I've worked in the service industry, I have come upon some of the weirdest people that I've ever come upon. And considering that my field is mental health and half of my field is working in crisis situations where the police drag people in, that's saying something. That I consider that those people I did in the service industry were much weirder than the ones I deal with.
Dude, that's something we haven't touched on too. Is like I definitely was involved in 2 robbery situations when I worked in those types of jobs. It's fucking scary because all of a sudden you are having like a Dante and Randall sort of day, and then all of a sudden like there's a gun involved. And you don't know what this motherfucker's gonna do. Like you can't fully anticipate how this guy's going to react. So I think that ending would have made it a little too real for me.
And you can't in situations like that either. You cannot panic in situations like that, because you never know what they're going to do.
Well, my wife had actually was telling me about a story from, not her story from Starbucks, but a story that had led to a corporate decision in Starbucks where a person had basically come in the back door that was left open and had robbed the place, had everybody get down on their hands and knees, and then shot all of them in the back of the head before leaving, which was the reason for them changing the policy to you must shut all the doors or leave the doors locked behind you. And of course, I thought that was an inside job. That's kind of, but that stuff happens. That's
shit was fucked, dude. Like I've definitely been in that position where a dude's pointing a gun at you, and it's like, holy shit, this went from me like just trying to make minimum wage to all of a sudden, I might die. And
it's my life or my death. Well,
and definitely I did not give a fuck. I was just like, take what you want, bro. I don't even think I said anything. I just put my hands up, probably like almost parody of like a stick 'em up situation. I was just like, they're up. I ain't doing it.
I didn't do it.
It's become policy in most cases, is it not? The whole idea that you're
just give them what they want.
Right.
Insurance will take care of it.
Exactly.
I would say
mainly because it's
What's that?
I would say, hey, you want some free food?
But yeah.
Food.
Just take what you want, get the heck out of here.
Not even like ashamed to admit I went full bitch mode because I was not, again, you're kind of in that casual, normal 9-to-5 fucking bullshit convenience store job situation. And then all of a sudden this dude has a gun, so I went full bitch mode. I just put my hands up and didn't say a fucking word. I was not trying to get shot by some random tweaker or something.
When you got a
$8.50 an hour or something, fuck that.
When you got a barrel of a gun, it's just I can understand. I've been there myself. I mean, I've had somebody pointing a gun at me. I know Jake's heard that story. Where I was about to be, I was told that if I had not managed to help talk my way out of it with somebody out there, I would have been buried in the swamp, and my car would have been also buried in the swamp.
Oh yeah, dude. Like the dude that robbed us definitely had like previous beef with the place too. You know. So he went the full net because there was an adjacent restaurant. So he dined and dished over there, and then came and robbed us.
Oh,
Damn.
And it was, you know, I wasn't trying to be involved in any of that. Yeah. It's a good thing I got out of here. I don't care what you take. But
So it sounds like
to bring it full circle, I think that ending would have ruined the movie.
well, and apparently, what's even worse about it is apparently Kevin Smith just didn't really realize how to end. It was like his first screenplay. He wasn't really sure how to end the movie, and I know from a little bit of experience trying to write that endings can be very difficult. Even established authors often have difficulty with good endings. You know, they
Ask J.J. Abrams.
yeah. Well, apparently, a lot of people give Stephen King flack for his endings.
He said,
John Grisham tends to rush his endings. You know, there's a lot of.
So you have a problem with this ending. You have problems with camera flares.
Right. Well, yeah, Abrams loves his camera flares. But in this case, though, since Clerks, when you think about it, Clerks is very much a slice of life movie. And so the idea of it just ending works perfectly for slice of life. You don't have to have an ending with this kind of movie. You can just go to black.
it can
So
just
it actually works.
shift, you know.
I mean, just walking out the door like they decided on eventually, that was the perfect way to end the movie. Killing everybody was not the best way to end the movie.
Right.
Speaking of, if you want some good slice of life anime recommendations or anime recommendations in general, hit up Set Them Sin vs. the World. These two dudes don't fuck around. I honestly didn't know like that term until I started watching your guys' shit. And
Oh shoot, we've got a lot of those. Like Seinfeld was an American slice of life.
Yeah, a lot of sitcoms are slice of life and people don't even realize it. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know how to quite describe that shit until I was watching you guys.
Like one of the shows I grew up on, I loved was Cheers, and Cheers is very much a slice of life series. It just
The
But
Office
anyway,
would be a big example of that too, I think.
should we be moving on to, I guess, special effects?
Sure.
special effects.
Special effects in this damn movie, dude.
There are so many of them. You know?
We did touch a little bit on the production values, and that is a good thing to talk about because the film was filmed on the cheap. You know, we did talk about how there were a few very limited kind of camera tricks or whatever.
I think shoe polish pretty much covers their special effects.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Just the choice to film in black and white.
Right. That was to save on
think
money.
That, you know, probably subconsciously Clerks had a effect on me. You know, I love black and white. It's kind of my preferred medium. I don't know what you call it.
But it adds a different feel. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a hard sell for the medium market for a black and white film these days.
Yeah.
So
there's something to be said about it. I like to think of my pickup videos too when I do like, you know, like I've done with the Game Boy ones where you show it all in black and white and then you have the full color like still photo of the pickup. It makes it a little more vivid, you know.
It also depends on how you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it makes you stand out in the crowd a lot of times, both for your channel and for Clerks. I do think that really helped them both stand out, helps them both stand out in the crowd, especially with Clerks being an indie movie. you could feel the artistic value with it, and the fact that just black and white. Might as well say it's being filmed on that CRT camera at the store.
There are times where black and white is a wonderful aesthetic effect, especially to the people who do black and white with very limited use of color, like the use of the red dress in Schindler's List, or you'll get movies like Sin City was basically black and white with flashes of color here and there. That was a really good, because they were basically doing a filmed comic book with that one, so black and white worked perfectly for that. There are times where it can be very, very, very useful. This one was pretty much a budgetary thing, but it worked in their favor because, like you said, it helped it stand out in the crowd, and it helped also with the idea of these are just ordinary people going about their, well, maybe not ordinary people, but close enough.
I think with Clerks too, it kind of, because I think a lot of us in our age range have vivid memories of the 90s and how things looked. Like, I'll forget sometimes when I'm watching Clerks that it's in black and white.
And it is a good period piece of the time because they were literally filming with what was there. And actually, that was one of my, again, on the production aspect, they filmed when the store was closed. They moved things around and they moved them back in time to open the doors. And, and one of my favorite anecdotes from the production was after the fight where Randall and Dante trashed the store. They say in the interviews that that the boss walked in and saw the mess, turned around and walked right back out, and they were like, "Oh God." Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing that it got made.
I wonder if he was saying, "I'm not supposed to be here today."
Exactly.
When you contrast the two movies, Clerks 1 and 2, and though we're not going to talk much about Clerks 2, or even the tone of the animated series, both that one and the sequel were both in color. You can, of course, see a huge leap in production value, especially when it comes to Clerks 2.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, they had a full-on musical dance number at one point. But with Clerks, the animated series, they just went all off left field into some very strange areas.
Yes. Very strange.
Definitely.
So it's just kind of cool looking at the various media that's come from Clerks as their sequels are kind of sideways. But also on top of that, looking at the music from Clerks, the original music, it is actually pretty awesome all the way through. A lot of cool punk sets. I believe there was some Bad Religion in there somewhere, and
alt rock. It's great.
And then you got the, of course, everybody's favorite song, Berserker. Yeah.
Yes.
I do suck some cock, Berserker. I love this.
Of course.
Apparently that was based on something. One of their friends actually did. He would go around pretending to be this Russian rocker and just kind of, yeah.
Well, and I think the absurd lyrics of that have definitely subconsciously, again, influenced me over the years. Like Brandon at least has heard songs I've done.
Oh yeah.
There's a little bit of, I think, the stupidity of that, and that's.
All right.
All right.
And then, one last production note. We keep talking about the budget. It's probably worth noting exactly that the film was filmed for $27,000. That is not much for a movie.
No.
Actually, shoot, the music budget probably. The music budget alone probably drained a lot of that because they had some pretty well-known groups perform. They weren't as well known at the time, but they were still
Yeah,
pretty
enough
big.
that you would have spent a chunk of change licensing it, and like honestly, I think that and probably whatever they gave. I imagine they gave the owners of the storefronts some money to
I'm sure.
there. You know?
Yeah,
I mean, shoot.
crash the place for sure.
And that's what goes back to my original point, which is Clerks is inspirational to me not only because it's like a low budget movie, a lot with almost nothing, but they did a lot with almost nothing. Like there's no special effects really. There's no fucking you know, watching Evil Dead as like a young horror fan, you're like, damn, I gotta learn how to do that stuff. But you watch Clerks and you realize that really all you need is like a good script, people to be in the movie, and
Well, it's like Lloyd Kaufman has said in the past, anybody can make a movie if they put their mind to it. And I think that's true.
That's what we gotta.
I want to make a movie.
Sorry, Brad, but they were giving away free Gatorade.
Yeah.
Well, see, there's the key to making your own movie. Give away free Gatorade.
Camera in your hand and start filming. Sure, eventually you'll be able to cut somewhere and create something from that shit. So,
just next time Kroger does one of those 10 for 10 deals on the Gatorade, you know, you can go probably pick them up for what, like 50 cents a bottle or something. You know, just stock up, and then you're halfway there.
So you guys that are fully versed on like the production and you know, the special features, how long did it actually take them to make Clerks?
They filmed it in 3 weeks, basically.
Shit.
Or they filmed it. They talk about this in the features that they were all dog tired because they all literally had day jobs, and they would film from for the whole time and then do their day jobs, and then
See, if we were to make a movie like this now, like say all of us in this chat decided to make Clerks, I'd film it with you guys whenever you are free. So I imagine it would take place over the course of a few months. You know.
Well, considering we're all over the country, it would
well, you know,
spread out.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit more complex than that. But say we all lived in the same town, like
with this one, Scott Mosier is, I believe, was a Canadian by way of Washington State, and the other dude, Dave, he was also from Washington, I believe. David Klein. Nearly everyone else, if not everyone else, was a native of New Jersey. So it was like pretty much they had 2 people come in from out of town.
And
that's pretty much it.
I don't think there is a film of Kevin Smith that he hasn't at least set in New Jersey, because he's originally from New Jersey. So
most, if not all of them, were set in New Jersey. Have
like
there been any others? Yeah, I can't remember.
I mean, you've got like, shoot, Tusk was set in Canada, and so was Yoga Hosers.
Yeah.
So you can say those.
Where was Cop Out set?
Shoot, who remembers Cop Out?
I don't think anyone does, but still.
I don't know about New Virginia boys like yourselves, but
am I imagining this?
People have.
Am I imagining that Red State was in North Carolina, or was that actually in New Jersey?
I feel
it
like
had to have been somewhere.
One of those mid-south states.
I can't remember, but I don't know why I want to say North Carolina. I don't know. But yeah, definitely the Askewniverse ones, the main ones, are almost all set in and around Red Bank, Asbury Park, that area. Yeah.
And that's kind of what you do. I mean, I think, I don't know. I feel like you don't see as much local pride nowadays as you should. But I've always been proud to be from the Northwest. And
Oh yeah.
Big thing, big part of my personality, big part of the stuff that I push is West shit, because I was born over here. I've grown up over here, it's
I
I
always love seeing Virginia
Northwest since
productions.
I was 11 years old, dude. So, it's been like 20 years since I've even been out of Oregon, Washington, or Idaho,
I definitely love
yeah.
seeing like the ones that are in my backyard. You know what I mean? Like, obviously in Virginia, there's a lot of stuff that's filmed in and around DC and Langley and that area, but
Right.
there's relatively few in the state proper. But there are a few, and the one of the ones I actually was in, Major Payne, was very much a Virginia production. So I like that. And I like, New World and some of those. It's nice to see it now and then.
Summers
especially
B.
when what's that?
Summers B.
Summers B, yeah. But
Popcorn Sutton, or is that the Carolina?
or Loving was a very recent one that was very much Virginia based. They filmed some of it right downtown here. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And it was good. I got to actually meet the Lovings at one point.
Oh.
Well, it was the governor was congratulating us on our program, and it just happened to be Loving Day. So it's kind of cool. It's really cool.
Audition,
But that's the thing is it's people take pride in where they're from.
yeah.
Yeah,
But we've been moving on this for.
You stuff reeks of that.
Yeah.
All right.
We've been doing this for almost 2 hours, so we should probably be moving on.
Is there anything else that anyone would like to say? Because we've gone through special effects, we've gone through music, somewhat, what we can remember of it, and we've done a few favorite scenes. But Mo, what was your favorite scene?
Oh shit, man! It's such a hard choice with Clerks because there's so many scenes that you could say would be your favorite scene. Like just all of them, all the stuff that we've talked about tonight. I think if I had to narrow it down to a favorite scene, it's probably that part where she mentions to Dante how much Randall loves him.
Okay.
Because that is just such a heartfelt scene to me, because I'm like that with some of my friends, I might be a goofball and fucking around, but I love those motherfuckers. It's like family, and that little tiny, like, I think it's like a one-line scene where she mentions that. And Randall even says some shit like, he's like, you break his heart, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is so, it hits so close to home, because I feel that shit about my friends, I imagine I'll feel that shit about some of you dudes. The more we get to
Oh yeah, the more we
it's such a pure friendship thing. And I think that's honestly that whole theme throughout Clerks. My favorite thing. You
can tell the two are close.
Yeah, they love each other, even though they don't agree all the time and they annoy each other sometimes. It's like, and to me, that's friendship right there.
Actually, this is once again, this is an example of something along the lines of Randall is Dante's Coto Nambara. Best friend, bitterest enemy.
Jake, what is your favorite scene?
I agree that it's really hard to pick one. I mean, it really is hard to pick one. If I had to say one, it would probably be either the reading off all the titles and then what was that one again? or the part where where Randall simply says 37. That like 37. Probably one of those scenes. Probably it's hard to really say a favorite.
Okay.
I think probably one of those.
What was one of your favorite scenes?
Brandon, in case.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know. I couldn't hear it. So I liked. It's really kind of two scenes, but they connect. I liked the start of the whole berserker thing that they were doing,
Okay.
introducing it, and then going back to it, and they're just like rocking out to the real version of the song
Yeah.
on their boombox. I thought that was hilarious. That it was hilarious, and it was just a fun like tie back to where they were.
The part later when it's just Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, and they're playing the song in the boombox.
Yeah. Actually, that was a fun bit. I'd forgot to mention that they said that Jay was so shy he did not want to break down and dance in front of the camera, so they set up the camera and everyone else left, and it was just them.
We'll bring this up because it seems like, no offense, well, it's not really no offense situation. A lot of you guys don't have experience buying drugs from people on street corners, but I think that with Jay and Silent Bob, it's definitely implied that they're out there mostly selling weed, and in real life, unfortunately, they'd be selling other stuff. They're not going to be on the street corner. Like, you just buy weed from someone, you go to their house. I want a dude, weirdly, that used to let a tarantula just roam around his house. And you'd have to go there to buy weed, and there would just be a tarantula roaming around. The weirdest fucking thing I've ever experienced, because he treated it like it was a cat or something.
What, did you give it catnip?
At one point, because it was like, yo, bro, your tarantula is like on this couch. It became one of those things where you just knew not to accept a place to sit down from that guy. I'll stand, if that's all right. But yeah, I kind of miss that in a way. It might sound sleazy, but you kind of miss buying weed on the street corner from a couple of characters or something like that, or a character. And that's something that we are going to definitely lose in buying weed at stores, as it becomes legal. And it should just be legal in every state. It's ridiculous that I can get fucked up on malt liquor. And,
and you can go to these states, get the weed, but you can't bring it back over state lines.
It's redonkulous, bro.
You just gotta figure out where you can go to. You gotta figure out where you can go to the corner and buy some black market vegetables. That'd be good.
Yeah, I kind of miss buying a little of the devil, Satan cilantro, as I call it, on the fucking street corner. That stuff aside, though, it's just, man.
That's going from Jay and Silent Bob to the Evil Bong series, where they're running their own bong shop there.
There's a little bit of the magic that's taken away from it.
I'm still not fully seen that entire series, even though I've contributed to some of it.
All right. So
I used to go to this dude's house that was like literally his street name or whatever. I don't know. How do you get a street name? Is it like how they assign names to the NPCs in like a street game? Like you just get your because his name was Killer or whatever.
Okay.
Just that was kind of my reaction. Was like, oh, Killer. And you'd go to his weird apartment, and he was just this giant Mexican fella, and he'd sell you a bunch of weed. And he was actually super friendly, And I like to think that Jay and Silent Bob are kind of the best sort of example of that, you know?
Well, it's like the guys said in the second Clerks movie. It's like, no, dude, these guys are hilarious. That's why I come here all the time.
I mean, if you've ever been like and bought drugs, I hate to again like sleaze it up here, but if you've ever bought drugs, there is like usually that like animated fella that can't shut the fuck up, and then there's like
There's always the mood.
the more silent dude that's like weighing the shit out and actually selling you the drugs, you know.
There's always the mooch too. The person that actually is will sell it to you, and then actually mooch off of that sold dope.
Oh yeah, that guy that's like, oh fuck, we hooked you up, like roll a blunt right now or something. You know, yeah, it's definitely those dudes.
Alrighty.
Right.
Well, in any case, moving on. I think that wraps our for the most part. So let's go around and see who is who, and where you can find some of their stuff. So, Tim, why don't you tell? Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Alrighty. Why don't you tell us about your channel?
Tim never got to give us his favorite scene, did he?
Yeah,
I know. Well, no, he gave us his favorite scene in Mallrats, but not in Clerks.
So there was another thing I wanted to say. Like,
Okay,
what if they colorized the original Clerks?
Gross. No. Like that's it's part of what gives it classic, bro.
Right? Blasphemy.
Blasphemy.
Brandon knows
Yes.
that I'm definitely like a proponent of black and white. I've been tripping on that recently too. Like, what are all the influences that make me like black and white so much? Because I do my own channel shit in black and white for the most part.
I noticed that.
And
I just don't know how to do that.
well, I'll teach you, bro.
Yeah.
Fucking do it. But it's, you know, I think color pops when you want it to, you know. And I think that it's kind of interesting for me to think about all that stuff, like with the sunglasses thing. Brandon knows all about that. Like, I've been tripping on that lately. Like, what might have been my subconscious influences growing up, and Blues Brothers is definitely one of them. You know,
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely have to cover Blues Brothers because it was in Milwaukee, part of it.
Right.
I think
it was on the list.
And they got some votes this time around, so maybe
did
next
get
time
votes.
they'll get more.
Oh, you put the votes up? Oh, you put the votes up there now? They're all.
No, this was on for this month's lineup. It was a choice, but it did not get voted in this time.
anyways, you know, like fucking, I think it's, you know, the black and white of Clerks is part of what makes the movie work. You know, it's what makes it have that personality to it. You know, if you were to colorize, it's like when people colorize Night of the Living Dead. You know, like it just feels gross to me when I watch it.
It's like when they colorized Dark Shadows. It was just wrong.
It just ends up turning out fucking gross. You know. Like you watch it and you're like, ugh, this, ugh, you know, like this is not the way the movie's supposed to look. And Clerks, I think, is one of those ones that would fall into that category of definitely being meant to be in black and white. You know?
Yeah, but it's an excellent question, Tim. It's a good one to pose forward.
Yeah, no hate, bro. Like me, it's.
I'm sure there would be some people who would like to see it in color, just to see how it would play.
I would feel like those people though would quickly realize that they made a mistake. Much like you do with the Night of the Living Dead, when you see that in color, you're like, "Oh, gross! No, stop it! stop what I'm watching.
Seemed
Well,
like a good idea at
They
the
already
time.
did that with the they already did that with the remake, and then when they went back and colored it.
I mean, shoot, Clerks 2 is the best example of a colored version of Clerks. And how they adapted it to where color actually worked fine with it. So
It's just
if you want to watch a good example of like color juxtaposed against black and white, watch Wizard of Oz. It's probably been a while since a lot of people in this chat, or you guys maybe even in this call, have went back and watched Wizard of Oz. But when you watch that, like that right there is the perfect example of how black and white works for a certain purpose, you know.
Mhm. Yep.
already. So Tim, why don't you tell us what your channel is?
You could find my channel. It's Horror DVD Devil 333, and my Facebook is Horror DVD Devil Gray,
Okay.
and Instagram, I think it's Horror DVD Devil 333.
Okay. And I know that you have some interest in animation, from what I understand. So
Yeah.
hopefully something comes of that eventually. Moving over to Set Them Sim. Why don't you tell us what's your channel?
well, we're Septum Sen versus the world. Excuse me. I had to sneeze there for a minute.
That's okay. I'm the world. What do you got against me? No,
We are a physical media channel. We're all about the Blu-rays, the DVDs, and the 4Ks, and the video games, and the books, and the whatnot. We talk about releases. We
Especially
do
the
pickup
whatnot.
videos, and we do some extras here and there. This week, last week, of course, we were doing our typical 10 Criterion films, our top 10 films we thought should get the Criterion treatment because this is the Criterion sale month off of Barnes & Noble. And this coming Friday we'll be coming back to our podcast that we call the Vlogcast. We're changing up our method a little bit. So we're hoping to make it more palatable to everybody as we work our way through. So hopefully it'll be enjoyable.
Hey,
We also do
go ahead.
we also do our stuff for Inside Movies Galore. Next week we are going to be covering the movie Tremors. It's going to be Dustin's birthday pick. So that's going to be a very entertaining one at that.
I would add that seriously, being an outside fan of Sepson, if you want the best way to get like up to date info on what's coming out on various physical media formats, Septon versus the World is the fucking one-stop shop for that, you know.
Definitely.
Him and Kotobuki Jake also do a lot of really sick list videos. Like, you know, they might not do them every week, but they do them over time, and they are worth tuning in for.
I could never do.
They will fill your shit with good recommendations that you might not find otherwise. For sure.
Most appreciated.
Yeah.
I know I could never keep up with what's coming. Well, I do keep up with what's coming out, but I could never record as fast as you guys do.
Oh, those guys hit it hard. Like I fucking that's my one-stop shop for like everything that's coming out on physical media. That's how I learn about it lately, and it is helping me out a ton.
When I used to write on my blog, I tried to do lists, to be honest, of you know my hits, but I could never come up with like the top 10 or the top 20 or whatnot, because I just wasn't there to that point where I could just pick and choose, you know. So
Yeah, they always bang it out, man. Like fucking, Brandon right here has like his good picks on what he wants, and then Kotobuki Jake. Why am I the only person who can say Kotobuki Jake right? Why do all these?
I wondered that myself.
I've been wondering that for like the last 4 episodes I've listened to. Everyone's like Kobuki Jake. It's
Because
Kotobuki Jake.
because you're a groupie.
Phonetic. Fucking put this shit in there. Brandon has like your every man's pick on the stuff, and Kotobuki Jake always has that stuff on like those random sort of, I'm not gonna call them old people movies, but
The what?
they are kind of that. Like it's like shit my grandpa would have loved, And
he brings the artistic touch.
Yeah, he has that shit, and it's like I said earlier in chat, I'm getting more into that since because my grandpa died a couple of months back, and I inherited his movie collection. It's not a down note. He was like fucking 90. He lived a good life, and so I got his movie collection. So I got like shit like West Side Story or Wizard of Oz, like all type of crazy good stuff. The Music Man is one that I've been like gearing up to check out lately.
Oh, good old film.
You guys also are stoked about movies that aren't like little genre flicks that we're all expecting, like Kotobuki Jake's whole deal with trying to watch all the fucking like Oscar related movies is something that I've been considering embarking on.
I've been slacking this year.
That shit is super rad, dude.
As have we all.
Alrighty. Since you've been talking, Mo, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your channels?
Oh shit, I don't do anything of consequence. Sometimes I review like movies and games on my own channel, Drunken Master Studios. Mostly you can find me over on Rebel Gaming Club. Just randomly shoehorned in there for some good crappiness. I've been lucky enough to meet these guys through doing that kind of stuff, and I feel blessed for it. But if you want to check out my channel, Drunken Master Studios, I feel super grateful for that.
You recently you had some metal tracks down there recently laid down, which are pretty cool.
I did, yeah. I've been known to throw down on some metal tracks when it's invited, and I definitely have like a whole little series on shot on video horror that's coming out here real soon. That David will appreciate, as well as our boy Boris from Croatia. And I noticed he checked out Video Violence. Hopefully we can get into a discussion about that here real soon. So yeah, basically just pop over to my place if you want to see somebody review crappy old movies and belt out a metal track while playing video games. Game Boy all up in that bitch, Brandon can attest to that. It's
going over to Kotobuki Jake.
All right. Well, as has been alluded so far, I have frequently guest on Septum Sin versus the World. I am
like you're like half that channel.
Unlike like everyone who's gone thus far, I myself am a avid collector of media of many forms, and obviously like to talk about it, and it's good times. And I do have the pretty kick-ass Clerks 10 set that came out for this movie, and I really wish I had made time for the whole package. I never really did the first time around, but I got to watch a lot of it, and I look forward to more of it, hopefully soon. And of course, in addition to what I do on Septum Sin, I do occasionally post reviews on there. For various reasons, it's been a while, but I have some in reserve that I'm hoping to get edited and out within a couple months, hopefully. As we go into the winter season, it should be easier to find time for that. And I do have my own YouTube channel, Kotobuki Jake, dedicated to nature and the natural world. Very poorly updated, but I have some good stuff. There will be more good stuff. Tune in now and then, and you might find something new. And I think that'll about wrap it up for this evening.
Okay.
He's grossly downplaying his role on that channel. Kotobuki Jake is your source for like actual film that you maybe wouldn't get recommended to you outside of like your grandparents watching shit, and that's not to say it's not good. It's just totally fucking awesome, like classic film that a lot of us overlook because we're busy jerking our horror movie dick. And I think that Jake is probably the unsung hero of that channel a little bit.
Jake has replaced Inside Movies Galore's Dane when it comes to our source for classical film structure, directing, and all things that you need to know about filming.
I most certainly could not fill his shoes as a Kubrick fanatic.
Gotta have Brandon in there. Like, Brandon is my favorite person on YouTube, and dude, you are like right there with him. And I think of you guys as like a package deal. My kid definitely, my daughter Nami loves Jake to the end of the earth, like. And it's so adorable to watch her sit there and like jot her shit down in a little journal when we're watching.
So who's next up? Is it
Dave? I think.
Motherfucker being all modest over here. You guys deserve it.
I guess that would be me, the unsung horror host of tonight's movie. But also I also do a lot on my own channel, which I haven't done as much lately as I would like.
Delusions of Grandeur.
Delusions of Grandeur, where I like that mystique that I bring to that.
We're over there adjusting our monocles and
like
out of pipes.
Kind of like the Twilight Zone of movie reviewers.
Yeah, sir.
But I've also been told that I am the Charles Manson of reviewers. You know exactly what I will actually go and review or take care of at that moment in time. So, but in any case, I know I've got some reviews that I started out there of the American Horror Project from Arrow, which I'll have a part two. Maybe I'll have a part two to those or not, because I'm still somewhat working on the extras on the discs. But I'm doing at least the reviews first. So I know originally I was going to include it all in, but I haven't fully watched all the extras on those. So. But I have a couple of discussions out with Mo and my Croatian friend, Boris, and we both went on separately at different times about my favorite film, and I believe that I will be allowing Mo to put this one up on his channel. So. Thanks for going on with me, Mo.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
That was
Looking
fun.
forward to our darkness discussion, which is something Darkness the Vampire version.
We do still have to plan that. See, I was going to, now that I've once I fully do the rest of my American Horror Project, then I was actually gonna watch those and the other films that we have planned to watch. And go on and discuss them separately or whatnot. So, and then Brandon, somewhere in there, we're going to do that Chinese discussion somewhere.
Yeah, I think next time I get paid, I'm just going to get hard copies of those two films and then just review them again. It's been too long.
I think we're about due for Don Dollar's special too. I've considered doing that on my channel, but I think it'd be more fun to do.
Joining us for this discussion. If you're interested in joining us for this discussion, both of these movies are actually on YouTube. I believe it was the Fantasy Mission Force and Master of the Flying Guillotine.
It's a big Wu-Tang movie right there.
I guess I might have to brave that other one again. I'm already started forgetting it.
I was gonna say it's been so long since I've seen it, but Master of the Flying Guillotine is like just a classic martial arts.
I need to see that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I gotta bring out the Master of the Flying Guillotine. I've always wanted to watch it, and I figured it would be a perfect one tour for the other one. And we also still have to do that El Mariachi and
oh yeah, for sure.
Is that the Mexico trilogy?
Yep. Yes, sir.
That would be a good one for us to try to get on this channel eventually.
Hey, if that would be a good one for everybody to do together. We should do the Mexico trilogy. That was a heck of an awesome trilogy.
Yeah.
We could also sort of like grandfather in what do you call it? From Dusk Till Dawn, because Dustin hasn't seen that yet.
Really?
That tripped me out when I saw that on his channel. He actually said he'd never seen From Dusk
Never
Till
seen
Dawn.
it, right? Like you saw the same video.
Doesn't he hate Tarantino? I guess that would make sense.
he hates Western.
You don't have to like Tarantino to love Dusk Till Dawn. Yeah.
He hates Westerns, and From Dusk to Dawn is a Western.
That's true.
I'm thinking we can change his mind on Western with stuff like Bone Tomahawk or The Borrowers. Though.
Yeah, I could see us do it. Well, The Borrowers, I could see that being like half and half.
Oh, wait until we cover Tremors 4.
Yeah, right. And that was more of a Chinese Western.
All right.
We are just doing Tremors 1, right? Like I don't want to
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that big six-pack, but though I might watch all of them, I probably will be just talking about the first one.
Oh, I'm gonna watch them all too, man. I'm sure me and you will have a good face.
Gotta watch them all, right?
Oh yeah, that's I got my steel book from Walmart for that.
Oh, nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be watching Tremors, the first one, next week. So stay tuned for that. In any case, hopefully you enjoyed our delightful discussion, which ran over 2.5. Well, ran over 2 hours.
Yes.
In any case, everyone say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Stay sexy, baby.
Noobs.